Addiction, slowly, it just takes. It'll take your job. It'll take your money. It'll take your friends. It'll take everything that you value. And the only thing it leaves you with is the pain that you were trying to escape in the first place.
Yeah. Hey, Merry Day After Christmas, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful and Merry Christmas. We're here today with Rocky Romano, who is going to share his story of hitting rock bottom as the heroin addict next door, his journey through addiction, recovery, and coming out on the other side of that. And ultimately what he found in that was the unfailing love of Jesus Christ. So what a wonderful day to share that the day after his birthday. Tune in for Rocky Romano's episode. Are you a faith-based father and you want to have the adventure of a lifetime with your son? You have to check out the father-son hike of a lifetime on the Camino de Santiago in Spain. June of 2025, I'm going to be taking a small group of fathers and sons over to Spain. We are going to spend 6 days, hike 70 miles, have some of Spain's most amazing cuisines, see some of the most beautiful places and spaces, but most importantly, spend time together bonding with our sons. If you're interested in this adventure, check out mattshoup.com. When you get to the website, click the Gentle Art of Leadership button and hover down to the father-son hike of a lifetime. Rocky Romano.
Good morning. Good to see you.
Good to have you here.
It's my pleasure, man. I've been looking forward to this. It's been a long time coming. Sorry I had to postpone it a couple times, but good to be here.
We're busy guys. I remember the text message. Hey, can you do this week? No, I'm here. We're there.
Yeah, been flying all over the country.
Me too. Yeah,
good.
Just got back. But I was in Miami just a couple days ago with my daughter. Went out for a concert and dug into the book, man. You gave it to me when we met months ago, and I just didn't get to it. And I read through it cover to cover, and I'm super excited to talk about your story.
So did you end up reading it on the plane? Is that?
I was sitting at the pool.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Haley was doing her thing at the pool. I was doing my thing, reading it, enjoying the Miami sun. And
good for you.
And I knew some of your story. Actually, we've got some really good mutual friends. Kim, who works here at M&E.
Yes.
And Marty. What's up, Marty?
Love Kim. Love Marty, too. So
it's good people.
Yeah, you do know some good people, man. And thanks to Marty, we got to meet each other and become friends. So it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah. So what'd you think of the book?
I loved it. I loved just the stories. I loved as an author, just the writing style of the comparative analogies of your situation. Mm-hmm. Just certain ways that you would describe the plight you were in or the situation that you were in. I thought it was really cool. And I love how you started back at the beginning. I read a lot of things that are chronological stories. When you hear a speaker or somebody writing and it's, well, here's my story from birth to where I am now. And it's not relevant. They just don't know how to tell it any other way, right? But you did an amazing job of picking. You went chronologically, but then picked the moments that were real transitional moments in your life that all seemed together to get you to where you are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I loved that. So good job.
Yeah, thank you. It was we wanted this book to be two left jabs and a right hand. We wanted to get to the point, tell the story, and kind of cut the fat out. And being a book that addresses recovery, addiction, and some of the hard facts of what it's like to go through that, we wanted to be concise, get to the point, and get through the story so that it made an impact on the reader. So if we accomplish that, then I am thrilled.
Yeah,
so,
and you absolutely did.
Good.
Yeah, and so to recap it, you're almost 60.
Yeah, I'm north of 60.
You're north of 60?
Yeah.
Oh, because you wrote this. Okay, because it was 58 when you wrote it.
Yeah, don't tell my sales guys. They think I'm 57.
Well, you don't. The point is you don't look your age. You're fit, you're successful, you're making an impact, a kingdom impact. You're out here in the community. But if you rewind the clock back, it wasn't always that way. So rewind that clock back and share the story of the title of the book is The Heroin Addict Next Door.
Yeah. Do you want me to go back to the beginning of the book?
Yeah. I mean, save some of the book for the readers to read the book, but just love to hear your story, man. Like we're new friends. We're sitting here having great conversation. We became quick friends real quick. And I love everything we've talked about, but just talk about some of those transitional moments that got you here.
Well, I think, the gist of the book was, like a lot of people, I was pretty successful, and I won't go through the whole thing, but I chased the things of this world, and that book talks about it, and cars, money, status, everything that the world was offering me. And I found when I got to that place that I looked around and I thought, is this all there is? And what happened in my childhood, looking back at it, there's a lot of things working with guys that I do now and mentor and disciple men and work with guys that are in recovery is invariably 99% of the guys have unaddressed childhood issues. It could be abandonment. It could be molestation. It could be, you pick from the vast buffet table of issues that we deal with. It could be divorce that impacted these guys. And so what we do is we don't address these issues. And in our generation, we're told to just bury the hatchet.
Toughen up.
Yeah, tough.
Be a man. Don't cry. Don't be a bitch.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. So we bury it dead. And what happens is those feelings, they take root, and those issues that are unaddressed take root, and they start to bear bad fruit in our life. And you hear often when I took that first drink or I did that first line, it made me feel like I always wanted to feel, and that was that sense of peace. Yeah. And so, which I don't know anybody that's an addict or an alcoholic or dealing with any type of addiction in elementary school when the teacher was talking to him and said, hey, what would you like to be when you grow up?
That's how you open the book. Nobody says, hey, I want to grow up and be an addict.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how do we get there? And so it eventually becomes your best friend. It's very enticing. It makes you feel like you always wanted to feel. And that little bit of use, it's like if you look at I explained to you before, like a pyramid. And at the top of the pyramid, just a little bit of use gives you maximum pleasure. And over time, that flips upside down. Mm-hmm. Now you have to use a lot for barely any pleasure. Yeah. And it's a real, it's really hard to explain to somebody that's not an alcoholic or an addict. But when that door of addiction shuts on you, it is terrifying and you're trapped. And so that's what happened to me, and I could not get out of it. And I was trapped.
When you say 99% of the people that you counsel that are addicted, they have an unresolved childhood trauma, right? So something that shows them that they're not loved, accepted, wanted, they don't have significance, peace, just general base needs, right? That like every human needs. And you see that just across the board. There was something that interrupted that story and made them feel less than or not worthy than. And then however the substance gets presented to them. Is that kind of the theme? You have that lack, that letdown, that trauma. It's presented. It's
very
consumed.
And it
gives them that, right?
Yeah, it's insightful on your part. With my issue was abandonment, and so we had talked earlier. My dad was like my hero, and so when my parents got a divorce, I moved with him to Reno, and I put all my chips in on my dad, and so we were in Reno 5-6 years, and he met a lady. And it's a crazy story. He met this lady, and I was the youngest of 8 kids. So he's thinking to himself, this is my last chance for love, and I've got to take it. I'm aging. I'm getting older. Yeah. And so he breaks the news to me and says, hey, man, this is my last chance to experience love in my life, and I'm going to take you back to your mom's. And so we jumped in the car, he packed it up, and we drove down to Southern California from Reno, and he dropped me off on the sidewalk. And the last vision I had was him driving away with my suitcase and bags on the sidewalk. And he didn't even want to go in and talk to my mom.
I remember that in the book. Yeah, just dropped down the corner right at the apartment there and was out.
And he's driving down the road. And that just sowed more seeds of abandonment. And I thought, man, and this is what it's going to be like. And so those were deep-rooted seeds that were sown. And whenever things started getting getting good for me, I tended to self-sabotage. I didn't feel worthy. Like when things started going well, and I'm telling you, that is
Was that conscious, do you think, looking back, or just subconscious? Because I do that. I've done that. I see people do that all the time. They feel like they don't deserve it.
yes.
Like, what did you just do here? Or why did I just do this?
I think it's buried deep into your subconscious. Like when the doctor goes in and hits your knee and your leg pops up, I just think it's a natural reaction. And you mentioned, the common denominator of all of this is, what is it that we really want as kids growing up in our development stage is love.
Love, safety, security, acceptance.
All of it.
Community.
Yes.
Right.
And you want to, like, even with what we're doing now in life, we want to be valued, right?
Yeah.
We want to pour into people's lives. We want love in return. We want to, and you do. Whatever you sow, you will reap, right? And so, going through that part of my life, until I got to the bottom, and ended up going into recovery. When I ended up in San Francisco in the Tenderloin district, and anybody listening to this podcast, if you've ever been to San Francisco, take a turn and go down to the Tenderloin, and you'll probably be there for at least 2 minutes and go, I'm out of here.
I went there with my son, and we saw enough of San Francisco. It was the most beautiful and disgusting place, but we didn't make it there. We heard about it. Like, don't go down there. There's no reason for you guys to go down there. And then I read about it in the book. And yeah, you got dropped off outside the recovery center, right, by your friend, and you're like, get out of here. Okay, I'm good. You can go now.
Yeah, actually, it was my sister-in-law.
Oh, that's right.
And so she, I had prior to that, I had finally broke and was in a little renovated garage, which was an apartment. I was about a block from the beach on English Street in Monterey, California, and I knew that that I was living near the beach, but within a couple of weeks, I'd be living on the beach. And I finally tapped out and I hit my knees, really never went to church, never did any of that. But I had a moment in that little apartment and I hit my knees and I did what you hear so often is like, God, I can't, if you are who you say you are, I need help. I can't do this anymore. And I was really broken and contrite. I was done. I had nothing left. And so the wheels, it's funny at that moment, as the word says, a broken and contrite heart, God cannot refuse. And I think, and obviously he heard me and all the wheels started getting, as I surrendered, the wheels of what God had for me got put into motion, and they had been going this had all been planned out as I look back in retrospect. Yeah. So I'm heading down there, and my brother says, listen, man, I'll put your stuff in storage. Vicky will take you to San Francisco next week. And so we're driving down there. I just felt this peace about, man, everything is just all being put into place, and this is going to be good. So we're driving down the highway and we get off the highway and we get onto 6th Street, and I looked around and I remember just looking up and I was like, God, I didn't ask you to send me to hell, because I looked to my right, there was hookers, drunks, on my left, pimps, drug addicts. This place was absolute chaos. I glanced to the left and there was a metal cage door, 164 6th Street, City Team Ministries, and it was a metal cage door to get in. And she whipped a U-turn, parked right out in front of this place. I went in to check in, come out, grab my bag, and she said, later on talking to her, she said when she was driving away, she took a glance in the rearview mirror, saw me standing there with my bag and all of the chaos going on behind me going, did I just leave him to the wolves? Did I do the right thing? And in the natural, Matt, it made no sense. It made no sense at all, because this place is crazy. And so that began the journey.
Well, and what was interesting in the book, because you had all of this success, and by outward appearances, you didn't look like an addict. You didn't look like you belonged in that. So not only were you standing there with everything on the corner, chaos going around, but it's probably the record screeches, right?
Yeah.
It's like when Haley and I went to this concert in Miami. We're the only white people there, and we walk in, they go, "Whoop, who are these people?" I mean, and everybody's looking at you.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking at you.
Oh.
Yeah. So kind of backing up a little bit, you have this abandonment, this childhood trauma, and I know you got into it in the book, but first consumption of drugs, alcohol is alcohol, right?
Yeah.
And like, what is that age? What does that look like? What did you feel? Because as I speak to a lot of addicts and addicts that have recovered, a lot that have come on here, they remember that first drink. If you remember Harley, first shot of whiskey, Dad gave him a shot of whiskey at 5.
I think,
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy that you mentioned that, because it brought up a memory. My oldest brother, Mike, who I was closest to, he's since passed away. He was giving me, I think I was probably 6 years old, and he would give me a dime every time I'd take a sip of wine, and I got completely throttled at a home family gathering.
Made a lot of dimes.
Oh, made a lot of times. And I got I was so sick. And my mom was perplexed. She had no idea what was going on. And I think I was probably 6 years old, right around there. And my brothers got a kick out of it. But my mom was just completely infuriated that had happened. But as a young adult, probably in high school, didn't really drink a lot. I drank some beer or whatever, but I didn't really have an issue in high school. And I had an alcoholic mom. I think I had a propensity to
lean that way.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
And now that I look back, everything's so clear in retrospect, but when you're going through it, it's probably wasn't a good. Now my dad didn't drink at all, which was interesting.
Mm-hmm. You've talked about those psychological factors of trauma, maybe the genetics on one side, mom's side, of propensity towards addictive person. They talk about addictive personality.
Yeah.
Right. And then you dove in. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, getting into the liquor industry, I was in the wholesale wine and spirits industry. Talking about you have fun, you sell, you get paid rather handsomely, and you get to party a lot. Sounds like a great deal.
They bonus you with your own product.
Yeah. And so you never pay for liquor. You got 40, 50 cases of wine in your basement at all times, really top shelf stuff. And, it becomes a lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And it slowly crept up on me. I think, to answer your question in a very roundabout way, it was just over time it started to creep up on me. And before I know it, I was in a stranglehold. And that's when I hit that crossroads and somebody offered me opioids. This is how twisted your thoughts can get. You go from alcohol to opioids. I can take an Oxycontin and feel the same way. And you're thinking this, nobody's going to smell alcohol on my breath. I feel just as good.
And you think it's okay to drive, right? Because you're not drinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Yeah.
You just nailed it. And so you're walking out of one jail cell into another one. It's only problem is this jail cell, you went from county jail to prison.
To federal lockup. That some strongholds on that.
Yeah. Because.
And then from there to heroin.
Yeah.
When you can't get the oxy anymore.
Yeah. And so now you're hanging around a bunch of nefarious people, that with nefarious motives, shall I say, that are bottom feeders. And a heroin crowd is an unusual group of people, and it's
different crowds.
Oh man,
right, from alcohol to opioids to heroin.
Oh yeah, heroin is it just takes everything from you. It just steals everything. And I've said before, it's one of those things where addiction slowly, it just takes. It'll take your job, it'll take your money, it'll take your friends, and it'll take everything that you value, and the only thing it leaves you with is the pain that you were trying to escape in the first place.
Yeah. Is the paint or roof on your home or business starting to look a little shabby? If so, reach out to one of our sponsors, M&D Painting and Roofing. M&D Painting and Roofing is a full-service residential and commercial painting and roofing contractor in Northern Colorado. And full disclosure, I'm the M in M&D. Check them out at mdepainting.com. Are you a small business trying to navigate all of the landscape of digital marketing and don't know where to go? Reach out to one of our sponsors, Imprint Digital. They are the go-to source for all things digital marketing. They are the producers of this podcast, and they run all of the marketing for all of my companies. Check them out at imprint-digital.com.
So there's the loop, right? And so now you're stuck.
Yeah. So somebody's there and they've had everything taken. How did you take it back? Where do you start? Talk about that journey. Because I know somebody's listening to this who either is or knows somebody, because everybody knows somebody who's there.
Yeah, well, getting to City Team in the title of the book being rock bottom, that's where I got. And I will tell you that underneath that look that I had, when I walked into City Team, I had a Tory Richards shirt on and some Johnston and Murphys and some nice jeans, and I didn't look the part. But as far as being broken, I was probably the most broken person in that recovery center. And the moment that I surrendered is when everything started. And so
you have to have that with everybody you now counsel and coach. They have to be to a point of brokenness and fully surrender and be all in, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I just don't see. Otherwise, you're starting to negotiate, and you always have that using card in your back pocket. Just in case things get tough, I've got
the plan B.
Yeah, I got a plan B.
Okay.
And there was no plan B for me. So what I was introduced to is this was a Christian sober living facility, and it was a 3-pillar program based on accountability, the Bible, and what they call the big book, which is AA, to go through the steps. Yeah. And when I started that process, they required me to go to church. I went to 3 meetings a week. I started at the very bottom, and I started washing dishes. So I went from an executive in the wine industry to washing dishes in a mission in the Tenderloin of San Francisco. And talking about humble pie, and I was wallowing in self-pity, wallowing in how did I get here? And there was a shift that occurred washing dishes one night, and it was relatively, I think it was about the end of the first week, and it just hit me that if I'm going to be here and if I'm going to do this thing, I have to completely surrender. And we would serve the homeless every night, anywhere from, depending on what time of the month it was, anywhere from 50 to 200 people a night. And they'd come through the food line, and I was just going to surrender to the entire process. And although I didn't have anything left, I had one thing that I could give, and that was myself, my time. And I could serve those less fortunate than me instead of wallowing in my self-pity. And once I did that, things started to change because I started to become a servant.
Yeah.
And I had never done that before.
And if you park the addiction conversation or somebody who's addicted aside, right, and those steps of brokenness to surrender to service, just at anybody in normal life, you're having a bad day, a down day, right? You're in that space. You're pessimistic, seeing the worst of everything. Just you're focusing on yourself, right, or the lack, versus all the ways that you can go pour into other people. And I have to remind I had a rough day Monday. I'm like, nope, I'm just going to turn around and go help people. Like kids come into jiu-jitsu. Hey, how can we serve?
Yeah, and you do that on a different levels with a lot of different things that you have going on. I think you incorporate that well in your life. You're a servant leader in many facets of your life, including your home, right? So it's something that it's the unholy trinity that the world sold me as me, myself, and I. Yeah. Right. And I bought into that 100%. But when I got to City Team and when I got to that point of being a servant leader, I'll tell you a story is that in that process, I became the hospitality. They slowly promote you up through the ranks. And I became the hospitality manager. So there'd be a line out in front of City Team before dinner, and all the homeless would stand out there. And I would go out and I would talk to all of them. I'd walk down the line and they, hey, Pastor Rock. They'd call me Pastor Rock. And what are we having for dinner tonight? And I was like, well, we're having steak tartare and creme brulee and a little side salad. And they're like, get out of here. And what I was doing, I was just having fun with them, interacting with them, letting them know that they have value and coming down to their level. And I would walk all the way down the side of the building till I talked to the very last person. And I think the Lord was prompting me to do this, to be a servant, to be a leader, to do this. And here's the way we're going to do things now. And I was blown away. I was enjoying it, man. It was unbelievable. And I remember having moments walking down the streets of San Francisco, going to my DUI classes. I had 18 months of DUI classes that I had to attend in. And I was talking to a friend of mine. I finally got a flip phone, and I was talking to him. I said, I am perplexed, and I don't have anything, and I have never been so joyful in my life. And it was really counterintuitive, and I just felt this joy that it becoming this new person, doing things that I'd never, being a servant, and I loved it, and it's served me well.
Do you feel like in that brokenness and surrender and then servanthood, there's another level or step or just part of that, just being totally stripped down of everything material and just back to the basics?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, because I had an 8,000 square foot house right about then. And I had a Porsche, and I had Jeeps, and I had a Lexus. I had a Mountain View, Lake View, the whole 9 yards. And I'd flow around on a private jet, all of that stuff. Yeah. And I was so much more at peace and loving life. But it didn't make any sense to me because everything I valued was in material possessions.
What was the biggest material possession that you've had that you thought would give you the most, or what was the material possession you've had that you thought would give you the most joy? That was the biggest letdown?
Without a doubt.
Was it all of it? Was it the house?
No, it was the Porsche.
The Porsche.
Yeah, because I got to finally, I bought an 86 and loved it, cabriolet. And in 2005, I got online. I got a hold of the German factory in Stuttgart, and I ordered a custom one, a 911 pearl white, Savannah beige interior, custom stereo, fancy rims. And it got delivered to Denver to a company called H.M. Brown. And I was in my addiction before I'd gone to City Team and just flirting with heroin and playing that game. And I went and picked it up, and I thought, I always wanted one of these, and I got a brand new one. And I thought, wow, this is how I've arrived. And anyway, I hadn't arrived. The lessons that I were to learn that would be most valuable were in this little mission, going back there. And it was 2.5 years that I would. It was the best 2.5, 3 years of my life. I learned why I was here. Why are we here? Who are we serving? Why do we serve? Yeah. What is the purpose of life? Why am I here? And you ask those questions to people, they don't know. And you should know that. We all have a purpose. We're all here for a reason. And I found the answers to those questions. And it gave me purpose, and it gave me purpose of a purpose, but value. And I've, the last 15 years, I walked into this mission at 48 years old, completely, utterly bankrupt, physically, materially, emotionally, spiritually done. Yeah.
So then today, right? So 15 years from there, you're doing some big things. You're helping a lot of people. You wrote the book. The book's been into the hands of tens of thousands.
Yes, sir.
Of people. And then talk a little bit about here in the local community. We have a lot of Northern Colorado people, Loveland people, friends here. You guys have a really cool mission.
Yeah.
You teamed up with Pastor Carl.
Yeah.
I want to get him on here. I saw him at the MMA fights.
Oh, you did?
He was down there with Grant.
Yeah, Pastor Carl's.
He wants to come in and do some jujitsu.
Are you serious?
He goes, I just want you to show me and my son some chokes. I'm like, all right. He goes, I don't want to do all that other stuff. I just want to learn how to choke somebody.
When
Come on out, man.
When Carl comes in, call me because I want to come in and watch that. So everybody,
I'll let him choke you.
Yeah, please.
You do that? We'll do it. Let's
all right.
But tell us about what you guys are doing.
Yeah.
Because that's amazing here. And that's just local in our community.
Yeah, speaking of Pastor Carl, he was involved in this, and I'll explain to you quickly what transpired. It had been in my heart a long time ago to start a recovery program, and I had mentioned it to Carl. Carl's very receptive. He's got some family history of alcoholism in his family, and he was very receptive. But at the time, Foundations was opening up the Windsor campus. It got put on the back burner, and a couple years ago, probably 4 or 5 years went by. I thought the thing was dead and gone. I for some reason, I was like, man, I think I'm being told that this is going to happen. This is what we need to do in the community. Carl calls me up out of nowhere, and he says, hey, man, you want to do that thing? I said, what thing? He goes, the recovery thing. And so we brought it. It was Phil Hicks, Carl Sutter, and myself. Yeah. And we were at Foundations Church, and he just laid out on a whiteboard. Phil Hicks is a business strategist. And
Yeah,
okay,
no, Phil.
So what do you want to do? How are we going to do this? And so we started praying about it. One thing led to another. We got Joe Ryan. We've got a bunch of other guys on the board. Jason Hepp, who's a contractor. A bunch of strong Christian men. And prayerfully, we went about moving this thing forward. And Carl's heart was all in on this. And he announced to the church, he said, this is what we're doing. This is our vision. Help us get there. And the church got behind it big time. I don't know what the final tally was, but over Christmas week, I think those 2 days, that Christmas service, I think we generated about $300,000. So we went out, looked for a building, ended up buying a building in downtown Loveland at 231 West 4th.
It's a home, right?
It's phenomenal. And here's the crazy part. We only had about $70,000 to do some aesthetic modifications and just touch up on the building. It was workable, but as God would work through people's hearts, one contractor came in, and everyone that came in had a family member or a friend that was affected by addiction, and one after another, they said, you know what? I'll just do it. I'll put in the floor. It's on me.
Yeah.
The guy who put in the suppression system, it's on me. The roofing, another buddy of mine, he said, don't worry, I got it. So the siding, I got it. And just one thing led to another. And I don't know what the final tally was on time and materials, but it's probably around $500,000. Yeah. And it was all donated. The house is called the ARK. It holds 18 men. It is the only Christian sober living facility in northern Colorado. So you can't miss it when you're driving down 4th Street. Right out in front of the house is a 7-foot tall Jesus statue, bronze Jesus statue, and it's called Jesus and Friends, and it was done by a local sculptor who's very well known, and they donated that thing. It's 1,200 pounds. It's 7 feet tall, and it's a
lot of statue. There's a lot of Jesus out there.
It is, man. We love it. So
how do people get that? So the 18 men that are there, how do they arrive there? It's full, right? Is there a wait list, or how does that all logistically play out?
Well, here's where we're at with the project. We've been open about 5 months. We have 6 guys in there right now. We're in the process, Matt, of contacting probation, Loveland Police Department, the drug testing centers. We have a relationship with Harvest Farms, which is part of Denver Rescue Mission, Teen Challenge. So we really are partnering with a lot of recovery programs when guys come out of recovery or guys have a certain amount of sobriety time. They can apply online at the ARK, the ARKSoberLiving.org, and get online and put in an application. We'll bring them in, interview them. We only have a few requirements. This is sober living. It is not recovery. But
just going to ask that. So they have to have already crossed that bridge or gone through that process and have a certain amount under their belt or behind them.
Yes. And it's not a one size fits all, but I think I don't want to say perfect candidate, but the guy we like is a guy coming out of, say, Harvest Farms. He went through the 4 modules of recovery. Mm-hmm. He is wanting to get back into society, and it's great for those guys to be around other men that are going to meetings, going to church, doing the right thing, and be in a sober environment before they go back into getting their own place and getting back into the world again. Yeah. So that's our ideal candidate. If a guy comes in and he's got more than 30 days sobriety, we'll take him. It just depends on, it's a case by case basis. But a lot of guys, the guys that we have so far, I think 4 of them went through recovery. 1 of them has 60 days, and we interviewed him, liked him. And he's got to be a fit for the house, right? And so do you have to be a Christian to be at the ARK? No. However, we're not shy about telling you who we are.
But you're telling people who Jesus is.
Yeah.
Required Bible studies?
Yeah.
Part of the curriculum?
Yeah, we require them to go to church once a week and to go to either Bible study, NA, AA, whatever they want to do. And all we're trying to do is implement a lifestyle that will continue far beyond being at the ARK. And so a lifestyle of service, a lifestyle of mentoring other men. And in the recovery world, they say if you want to keep it, you got to give it away. So you got to work with others. You've got to sow seed into other people's lives. And that's what we're trying to show them. So if they're willing to do that, we'll bring them in.
Then they're in.
Yeah.
How long do they stay there?
We shoot for a year.
Okay.
However, if a guy's in the program and he's excelling and doing real well, we want to bring up a guy to be an assistant house manager to the 2 house managers to help around the house. We are open to that. So if a guy stays longer and he's an asset to the house, we'll keep him around longer. Some guys will stay 6 months, some guys 3 months, but the goal is a year.
Okay.
So
how do people get involved? So do you have staff there? Are they volunteer? Are they paid staff? How do you staff and support? How can people help? Obviously, I'm assuming financially.
Yeah.
People can donate, contribute.
Yes.
Are there other ways people can help that are in this community?
Yes. Anybody in the community that here's what we're big on. Our church, church I attend, Grace Community, we have guys in the men's group that are very godly men, good Christian men, and we want them to disciple these guys. And so what does that mean? We have a discipleship program, but do we want to overcomplicate that? No. We want a guy to take a guy out to coffee, take a guy to lunch, spend time with him. These men need to see the Matts of the world, the Rockies of the world. What does it look like to be a godly man? I didn't know. And my mentor was a guy named Paul Chan, who was brothers of evangelist Francis Chan. And I didn't even know that. I knew when I started hanging out with this guy, there was something different about him. And the way he conducted himself and the way he talked to me was quite different than anything else I'd ever experienced. And so we want guys to disciple these men. And that's really the thrust of this program is discipleship. We want to make disciples that make disciples and thus impact the community, right? So that's the goal.
Love that. So through this whole journey, and you've obviously shared, we know this, right? You're a man of faith. So you're finding Christ through the journey of recovery, and you're out there sharing the gospel with these men, with the community. So just talk about that a little bit. You actually came into we have a morning men's mastermind here. So it's a group of guys, and some are Jesus followers, some aren't, but they just want to be better in life and family and leadership and business. And, you came in and spoke to them, and I loved what you shared. You shared your story, but we were talking a little offline. What do you have to say to somebody that maybe has lost their faith, doesn't have faith, or is just completely opposed to and against Jesus?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question. I think for the body, for guys like me, that I think these men have to see it. We can say a lot of things. We can quote scripture. We can do all the, we can speak the Christianese language. But if they don't see the fruit, right? And if there's no root, there's no fruit.
And it's confusing when they're speaking it and not doing it, right? Like, Joey, weren't you and I talking about this? Because we have conversations about this.
Yeah. I mean, you and I grew up.
Sounds nice.
You and I grew up with like the same types of Christians.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't for so long. Like, that sounded really nice in your Bible study, but you're kind of a dick.
Yeah.
And you don't really care about me. You're just judging me. I don't want to be like you.
No.
Yeah. No root, no fruit.
Yeah. And so
yeah,
we all know there's a lot of so-called Christians that give the guys like us a bad name.
But are they so-called, or are they just they truly do believe in and follow Jesus? And I think we all get it wrong to a certain degree,
we do.
Right? So I think there's definitely the fake ones that are let's say wolves in sheep's clothing.
Yeah,
they're totally faking it.
Yeah.
But then I think there's also just the humanness of any Christian. Like, we are all hypocrites at a certain point, at a certain time, to a certain level and degree and intensity, right? I mean, we are.
That'll preach. That's a fact. I call it the inflatable dead guy. And so if you hit your, if you those car lots you go by, the used car lot, and the guy's like,
yes, my son loves those. He has an inflatable collection, and he would freak out when he was like 7. We'd drive by the little. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
That's the old Matt. So when you do something stupid, the inflatable dead guy, it says pick up your cross daily, right? And you got to die to yourself. And so that can be quite challenging, because the dead guy, he can reinflate like that. I mean, hit your hand with a hammer and see what happens.
Yeah.
What's the first word that's going to come out of your mouth? So to your point, do we do it perfectly? No. But what I see is progress rather than perfection. Yes. I can look at my life, and I'll share this with you. The last 15 years, God has done more since I surrendered in 15 years than I could do the first 45 years on my own propulsion. Yeah. And so all I did was surrender. Do I do it perfectly? Absolutely not. But it's a daily surrender. It's like, what do you want me to do today? And with my sales guys and the guys that I work with, I was talking to a very successful business guy in Utah, Salt Lake, yesterday. I was there, and he's a man of faith. He's built an empire, and this guy is the most humble man you'll ever meet in your life.
Yeah, and business people, I assume you, just reading your story and knowing you, you're a high-producing, high-closing, high-energy sales guy. You can do a lot on your own. So it is hard for guys like you and I. It's like, well, I got this. Surrender. What is that? What does that mean? That seems weak.
Yeah.
Right? And was that hard for you?
So
that can be hard for me.
Oh, yeah.
And then you see it.
I think then when you get real with yourself, the Spirit, the Holy Spirit in me, I think when doors open, and like this year we had a fantastic year, and I saw some doors open that no man can close, and some doors close that no man can open. And I know it was provision. I could take credit for it, but it really wasn't me.
If you've got junk in your life or business that you need removed, reach out to one of our sponsors, Hulk Addicts. They are a full-service junk removal company, and they'll be able to take care of you at your home or your business to get rid of whatever you don't want. Check them out at hulkaddictsjunk.com. If you're a Christian small business owner, you have to check out one of our sponsors, the Foundry Advisory. They are a Christian peer advisory community here in Northern Colorado and the Front Range that is designed to give you encouragement, support, and insight to grow your business with other like-minded Christian business owners. Not only are they a sponsor and a partner of this podcast, but I'm also a member of their community. Check them out at thefoundryadvisory.com.
And I want to take credit for it. I think even the skills that you and I possess as sales guys and doing what we do as a living, that's a gift from God.
Yes.
So,
but it's easy to forget that and think that we did it because we're so good.
Yeah. Yeah, therein lies the
remind
issue.
yourself of that.
Oh yeah, it's
I love that.
Yeah, that's the truth of it all. But there's as time goes on in those 15 years, as I walk with the Lord, I see progress. I think my wife sees it too. And then when something crazy happens and I have some weird stuff come out of my mouth that I say to my wife, and it's so humbling because
you do that too.
Oh yeah, you're like, maybe I haven't progressed as much as I thought. Because you have those setbacks, and it's the flesh, man. We're fighting against the flesh. The spirit wars against the flesh.
And it's easy to have the biggest setbacks with the people closest to you as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
It's and I always tell, listen, Matt. It's everybody in church. On Sunday you go to church, and it's like, hey, how you doing? I'm good. Everybody's good, right? And it's people will come up, hey, Brock, how you doing? And I said, well, if you really want to know how I'm doing, go ask that lady over there, my wife. She'll give you the real take on how I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it's really, and that's so true because I'm good. Well, I'm not always good. So
we had John Simmons. He's the co-founder of C3. Great guy. And he does this to everybody all the time. To me, talked about it on the shows. Hey, how you doing? And we go, oh, good. How are you really doing?
Yeah.
How are you really doing? Because everybody's got something. All the time. You always got something that's off balance or out of whack.
It is.
Yeah.
This guy I was talking to you about in Utah, we were talking about my sales guys, and when I came over to this company, I said, I will address each individual. This is like a ministry to me. It's a platform, and I have 16 guys, and I have to address the whole man, not just the sales guy. I got to know these guys. I got to know how many kids they have. I got to know what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, what motivates them, all of the different aspects and components of their life, and address the whole man to get the most out of that person, right? It's not a one size fits all.
Yep.
And so I approach it as a ministry. And in doing that, if I love on these guys, they will confide in me. And when I need something done, they respond to me. So it's served me well in the business world to be more of a servant leader and to be transparent with these guys when I'm holding meetings and all that, and tell them, hey, listen, man, I don't have all the answers. And to be honest with you, I'm going to say probably some stupid stuff. So if I offend you or do something wrong, call me on it. Hold me accountable, because I promise you I'll screw up, right? So that's how I approach my business too. I'm serving these guys. I'm ministering to them.
And you don't see that a lot as an approach to sales and sales management, right? And we're both in the roofing industry, right?
Yeah.
So you're in an industry where not all those guys, right? It's big ticket, high sales. It's where you were, right? Big commissions.
Yeah.
That's a rough industry. There's a lot of riffraff in it, and they're around that. Yeah. And how is that received? I mean, it's got to be exciting to step into that where people they're probably less ministered to in that industry, and you probably catch them more off guard than if you came in and did this in maybe a more buttoned up industry. Oh yeah. Right. So how's that been? Because man, I've been in painting seen some stuff.
Yeah, we deal with the same characters. Yeah,
and they're characters, and like this. Don't stereotype. Well, the stereotype's true. a lot of the times. In the painting and the roofing. We're still figuring out the roofing, but we definitely got the painting figured out.
Yeah,
Seen
it's
enough of that.
Well, before we did the interview today, and so one of your painters came in, and so you kind of stopped him in his tracks, and I was watching the interaction you were having with him. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? And I think that we've got to pour into these guys, and so where it says faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love, and I don't care if you're a believer, a non-believer. The people that in the construction industry, the roofing industry, they've number one have to notice there's something different about us, and that we really care about these guys. And at some level, at some point in time in their brokenness, they've got to want what we have.
Yeah.
And that is one beggar telling another beggar where he found the bread. And that's really it all. I'm no better than you are. I just found the bread.
And I love that analogy. You said that in the men's group, but then that beggar needs to know that they can ask you for the bread and that you'll share the bread.
Absolutely.
And you have to break those walls down. Because I think in this industry, you see working for the man and look at what he's built. It's off my back, kind of a thing. He's got the bread, whether it's the money or whatever it is they're searching, and they don't think, and there's that wall there. Because that leader, that owner, right, that's running that team, running that company, doesn't make themselves open and available to that. They don't know that they're loved. Right? Because pouring to people, it's connection, contribution, and care. If you don't connect with these people genuinely and know their story and who they are, how can you contribute to them?
No, that's true.
And if you contribute, it's fake if there's no connection. And if you don't care, it's all just a farce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pretty much spelled it out.
Love it.
It's all about that, and it's the journey's been unbelievable. And I'll share one moment I had at City Team that really changed everything. And I talk of this place in the Tenderloin, and it was probably 2 months into it. And I've told you this story before, but I was sitting on the main floor in City Team. You could look it up if you Google 164 6th Street in San Francisco. You'll see where I went to recovery. It is. I've showed it to my boss. He's like, "Oh my, that place is."
Joey, pop that up on the screen when you go back to cut this. Pop up a photo, drop it in.
164 6th Street, and so I'm sitting on the main floor, and above is the hotel. We rented 4 rooms up there, and most of the guys slept on the main floor, and downstairs was the clothing room, learning center, and meeting room. And pretty tight quarters. And so I happened to be sitting there early afternoon. Nobody was in the building. And I was looking out of the gate, and I was watching all the chaos just trek by the door and all the noise and confusion. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had this like warm blanket come down over me. And I'm telling you, I have never, ever, ever, this peace and this warm blanket came over me. I don't know how long that took place, but I remember sitting there, and this presence left. And when the presence left, the peace remained. And I just looked up, and I just looked up, and I said, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Because it was the one thing that I would have given everything for. I would have sold my house, my cars, my everything. Because in all of that, in the addiction, chasing after material things, that deposit that was left was peace. Yeah. And that's the one thing I was looking for. And I met the Prince of Peace. Yeah. And that changed everything. And so to this day, I have that peace despite... and I'm like the rest of us, right? Yeah. Every once in a while, I get emotionally
hijacked.
Yeah, exactly.
We use that phrase around here because I do too. Like, Kevin always checks me. You met Kevin. He's like, "Dude, you're getting emotionally hijacked right now."
Yeah,
stop that. Joey's seeing me do it too.
Yeah,
I've seen Joey get hijacked.
Yeah, man. I mean, we've been doing this for 1.5 years. So
he came in one day. We were out of the Jimmy Dean biscuits, and you should have seen what happened.
Joey, come on, Joey.
Do you think you could have fully recovered without Jesus being part of that process?
No.
And do you think you needed to be addicted. Was that God's plan for you, was to go through that to find him?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I can tell you that the pain and suffering that heroin, I was sitting with a Messianic rabbi a month ago at Kingdom Man in Texas. And I said, Rabbi Don, he said, hey, Rock, I want to share something with you. I was a heroin addict. I said, really? And I said, it's like being in prison, isn't it? He looked at me and he goes, it's worse than prison. And I said, you know what? It was. He just said, the bars are on the inside and you're trapped. And the statistics, last time I looked, are 1 in 100 that try to get off of heroin or opioids do. 1%.
1%.
It might be 2% on the upside. 2%. It is that addictive. And when you're detoxing from it, as I explained in the book, it is like...
It's like COVID times 1,000.
Times
flu,
1,000.
Flu times 1,000.
Yeah.
I remember you said when you were driving. You were driving.
Oh, and so some of the guys that I mentored, a guy I know, Alan Horn, and a guy I discipled, and he was a heroin addict. And when the epidemic or pandemic or hit, we were perplexed because we're like, what's everybody so afraid of? If you've got, I mean, we were kidding around and said, you know what we should have done? We should have got all the pastors addicted to heroin and let them detox. And then when the pandemic came around, they would have said, this is nothing.
This is nothing.
Yeah. And I'm kidding around, but it's serious business. And
dude, don't get me canceled, man.
No.
Don't get this banned.
No, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Edit.
Yeah. Cut. Hey, Joe, cut. But anyway, it got off track, didn't we? So
we squirrel a little bit though. We're like two squirrels here.
Yeah.
On coffee, and we had some really good coffee.
Yeah, very good. Thank you for the coffee, by the way.
Man, I really appreciate you coming out, sharing your story. What's the last thing you want to say to somebody that's inching towards faith and just still not there? It's always that but. That's where I was for a long time. Rocky, that's great. Like, great story. Appreciate that you found God. There's still that but. There's still that objection.
Yeah,
What do you say to that? Because that took me so long to get to.
Well, I hate to, go all evangelical on you, but, Christ said that nobody could come to him unless the Father draws them. However, if you draw near to me, I will draw near to you. And I think that if you're hurting and if you're honest with yourself and you're broken, take a small sample and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to find a church and I'm just going to go listen to the Word of God for 6 months, 3 months, 2 months, maybe a month, and just see. And you know what I'm talking about. I can't tell you how many times that I have taken a person to church and when we're leaving, they go, he was talking to me.
Yeah.
He was talking to me. And the Word of God will cut. It cuts like a knife. It's sharper than any two-edged sword. And I would just say, just pursue it a little, give it a try. And the one thing I ask my guys I've had guys that don't believe, I said, just do this. Take 5 minutes every morning for a month. Give me 1 month, 5 minutes. And ask God, or the God that you don't believe in, say, God, I don't believe in you. Would you please reveal yourself to me?
Yeah.
Please. And then I want you to spend 4.5 minutes just talking to him. Here's where I'm struggling. I need your help, Lord. Can you show yourself? I'm having this, whatever. Just talk to him like you're talking to me. 5 minutes. Can you do that? And people, I can't tell you how many times I said, at City Team, I said, I can do that.
Yeah.
Well, now they're in Christian ministries, following the Lord, and try that. That's one angle. It seems to work, and it's to your point. The addiction. I tried everything, and I couldn't. bust loose, and he's the chain breaker. So I'm out.
Rocky, thanks for being here. We wrap up the podcast same way every show. You wrote down the statement that you want to leave with the world when you leave it. What is it?
I put down Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, which it says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight." And that is my favorite proverb, favorite scripture in the book of Proverbs, and I try to live by that, and it works. So I want to thank you for having me here today.
Thanks for coming out.
You're amazing, and Joe, you're amazing too.
Dude, listen to those three
Thanks,
voices.
brother.
Hey, if this podcast doesn't work out, we could take our smooth radio voices on tour.
Hey, we should do a radio show. He's got a
Should we do
smooth
it?
jazz
Listen
voice.
to this guy, man.
He's good.
Smooth velvet white chocolate.
It's good.
He is good, man. Thanks for having me.
Rocky,
It was
that's a wrap.
pleasure, man.
Thanks. Hey, thanks for tuning into this week's episode. Would you make sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel here? And please share this episode with somebody whose life it will make better. Hey, one more thing before you go. Head over to my website, mattshoup.com, and make sure that you sign up for the free tools. I will drop you an email with a whole bunch of life, leadership, and business building resources that will make you better. And I'll also keep in touch with you with all of the events, experiences, and updates that I've got coming your way.